right, guys, welcome back. I got this out of the spray booth. It's been about 13 hours. It's dry. I drilled some holes in this top bracket to fit the plate that's going to hold the globe, and I also drilled a hole in the top so that my wire can go down into the cabinet rather than out the back, so you don't have to see the wire. I did take the globe apart, and I'm going to paint those with that other piece so all the greens match exactly to the cabinet itself. I tried to use some cordless mic today, and I cannot get them to work on my phone. These will not work. They connect and everything, and it just won't record. So apparently I'm gonna have to get a different brand or something. I'm not sure. I got those off of Amazon, so that was a waste of an hour trying to get those to work. But anyways, what I'm gonna do off camera is I'm gonna go ahead and sand this all down with 320 grit, get it all ready for paint, get it blown off, and we'll get it back in the spray booth. And then we are going to wipe it down real good, put a coat of epoxy primer on it, on the whole thing. And then once that sets up, we'll put the white on the front, let that set for a while. As that is setting, I will be working on the 59 Impala. I'm working under the dash, trying to get those last few things hooked up. And then I got some other things to do on it. So I'm going to kind of be jumping back and forth between the 59 and this. I'm not going to do any videoing on the 59 today. Everything I'm doing is not really visible, and it's just kind of tedious work that there's really nothing to kind of show. You know, hooking up vents and cables and stuff like that. It's really nothing much going on there. But anyways, I'm going to get this sanded down. I don't think you guys need to watch me use the DA sander with 320 grit and sand this. It's no different than anything else. And I got to make sure I paint these two plates green as well. So my goal is to have this completely painted today so that tomorrow I can start assembling it, getting all these parts onto the cabinet. Then I'm going to wheel this thing into the back room and cover it up with plastic until the next bay is ready in the shop. And then I'll be able to put it over there, hook it up, and have it working. I will hook up the one hose that's going to go from here, you know, out back of the pump. I'll probably have both hoses coming out of the back, just ready to be hooked up once the back bay is ready. I still need to make a wooden base for it, so I will be doing that at some point, probably in the next week or two. I have the poplar sitting over there to do it, and I need some 2x4s, which I have those as well. So, all right, I'm gonna quit talking, get this sanded down, get it in the spray booth, and get the epoxy primer on it. Okay, it's all sanded down. It's been wiped down twice. Metal parts, all that's ready. Plastic parts, so everything's ready. Now, I'm gonna spray epoxy primer, but only on the pump and the metal parts. I'm not gonna spray the green parts. Reason being is it's already green, and the new green's really close to the old green. So I'm not gonna waste epoxy primer on that when I don't need it. So what I did was I wiped it all down with wax and grease remover, blew it off. So I blew it off, wiped it down with wax and grease remover, blew it off again, wiped it off with spray away window cleaner, blew it off again, and now I'll tack cloth it before I get ready to paint it. I'm just going to use a used tack cloth. This one's still in good shape. I don't use sealer. I use epoxy primer for a sealer. You can buy sealer. I don't use it because I do overall paint jobs usually on everything I do. So for me to have sealer like that, it's really not worth it because I use epoxy primer all the time, and you can use it as a sealer. So why would I buy two different products when I don't need to? Now, if this was a collision shop and I was doing a bunch of repairs on newer vehicles, I would have sealer, because some of those sealers you can tint. So let's say you're painting a car, what would be a hard color to cover? Even white. You know, if you're painting white and you have a bunch of gray primer on your car, it's good to put a white sealer down, because the white sealer is going to make it quicker and use less material in color to go over that. What sealer is intended to do is fill in any minor sanding marks that you might have missed, and also it gives the overall surface a solid color to work from. If I were to just start putting green on this, there's a couple little spots maybe the size of a quarter that went through to the body filler. if I didn't put this epoxy primer down, you have the likelihood of your color, the green, white, whatever you're using, that spot right there to show up as a halo, like a circle. And I've seen it happen, I've done it before. So I always just seal everything with epoxy to give it all an even smooth coat, all the same color. But on the green parts, it's so close to green, I don't want to waste it. And there's no point in building up extra material on those surfaces because they are already green. So this is a 2-to-1 mix, 2 parts epoxy primer, 1 part hardener, and then I'm going to add 1 part reducer to thin it out. So I'm going to go ahead and get this mixed up. We're going to go out there, tack cloth it off, get the coat of epoxy primer on the metal parts, and then once that sets for 15 minutes, we're going to put white on. I was going to tint the white to make it a little bit of an off-color white, but when I looked at the glass for the globe and everything, it's pretty much pure white, so I'm just going to use pure white. I might as well just leave it like that. I just thought making it a little bit dingy looking might look a little cooler, but it's not going to match the globe then. Well, you know what, maybe it would, because I'm not going to put a bright LED light in the globe because I don't want it to wash out the colors of the glass. So I'm going to put like a soft white light bulb in there, so it's going to give it a little bit of a yellowish glow. So maybe we will just put maybe a drop or 2 of yellow in the white, just to give it a little bit of an antique white color. That might look, I think it's going to look a little better than the pure white, but we'll see what I think. Yeah, it's tough. I think I'm going to antique it just a tiny bit. So let me get this mixed up and I'll be back. Okay, this is the white, GM white. I found a little can of this. There's some left in it. I might just mix a little together. This is called Snowcrest White Cameo Ivory. It is a, not sure what car, GM. It's a GM car. So if you look in here, you can see how that's a little bit dingy looking, and this is bright white. So I'm going to add a little bit more of this bright white into here because I don't think this is enough. But this is reduced. I could tell by it, how thin it is. So I'm going to add a little bit of white to it and see what the color looks like. And I might just be able to go with that. I'd like to use up this little bit that's in this can because I don't even know where it's from, what I used it for. Yep, it's definitely has a little bit of an antique look to it already, so that's awesome. I don't have to add anything to it. And now I know I have enough color, but hopefully this will show up on the camera. So look at the difference. It's probably not going to really show up. You can kind of see how that's whiter, and this is a little bit of a grayer, beigeier color. It shows up a little bit. So yeah, I'm happy with that color. That's what we're going to go with. So I'll be back in about 15 more minutes, and we'll let that dry, and then we'll get the white on the front face, and then it's going to set for an hour and a half, 2 hours. Okay, I'm gonna let that set for about 10 minutes, and I'm gonna go out there and put on the next coat. It'll probably take 3 coats, but it definitely has a little bit of a dingy color to it, and I like that. I think that's gonna look a little better. So I'm gonna let that set for 10 minutes, and then I'm just gonna go out there off camera and put the rest of the white on, and then I'll show you what it looks like. We'll let it set, and then we'll get it taped off, get all the green painted, let that set. Now, once we paint all the green, before we untape the white, I always recommend highly use a tack cloth, wipe down all the green paint before you untape the white. Once you untape the white, do not use that same tack rag to wipe your white down because you're going to have green residue on it. Your green residue is going to smear on the white, and you're going to have to redo the white. I know this because I've done this. I did it on a Chevelle. I was painting a red Chevelle with white stripes. And I had got done, I did the stripes first, I got done painting the car, I untaped the stripes and I started tack clothing it down while I dragged red across the white. Had to retape the car the opposite way so that I can repaint the white. So I learned from that lesson. But yeah, make sure, and I always like the tack cloth off before I unmask, because any bit of residue that's on that green, because anytime you paint a color, when you tack cloth it, a little bit will come off. You know, usually if you're spraying correctly, not much will come off. If you're spraying dry, you're going to have a bunch of powder come off. But usually if you're spraying at the right pressures, the right atomization with your spray gun, you have everything set up really good, you really shouldn't get a ton of overspray off with the tack cloth. So, but it's always good practice to do that before you untape it. So I'll be back here in a little bit. Okay. 3 coats of white. There's a little bit left in here. I put a cap on it just in case after the green I need to touch something up. Now this is going to set, like I said, for about an hour and a half, 2 hours. When I go to tape this off to put the green on, I need to make sure I put tape up in here because there's that opening where the light's going to go, and I need to tape off these two holes. So Got to tape those off before I tape the whole thing off. If I don't tape this stuff off, when I start painting the green, it's going to blow through these holes, go through the front, and be on the white paint. So I got to be really, really careful and really tape those off well. So I'll be back in a little while. For you guys, it'll only be a minute, but for me, it's going to be a good hour and a half. See you in a little bit. Okay, it's been about 2 hours. And we're gonna tape it off so that we can get the green. Now, usually about 45 minutes to an hour you could tape it off, especially if it's a non-metallic color, because if you get a little bit of a tape mark in a non-metallic color paint, when you clear it, you're not gonna see it. I just gave it extra time just because I had the time to do it. Why not give it a little bit extra time? Now, I'm gonna come in about 1.5 inches. And then come down about 3/4 from the top edge. Okay, and that's going to be the white and the green, because on a lot of the pictures I see that the green does come around to the front. So I have 1.5 inch tape here, and I'm going to use that as my guide to get my piece of tape even going up the sides. So by sticking this right at the edge, in a couple spots, I'll be able to run the 3/4 right along it. And we'll have to cut the top afterwards, probably. Maybe not. Maybe, depends. So we get that stuck right there and roll it all the way down. Reuse this on this side. No point in wasting it. Now we don't have to wait another hour or two before we untape the green. Half an hour, 45 minutes at most, depending on how quickly it sets up. If I leave the fans on, it should go pretty quickly. All right. Now we have both of these sides taped. Now we do the top. Now I'm going to mask off the holes. I could probably reuse these pieces for the holes, but I'd rather have a new piece that is sticky. So what I'm going to do now is run this right along this edge here. Okay, then I'll come in with the second piece and I'm going to go right up against that edge. And if you take the tape and you leave it long and you pull tension on the tape as you're taping it, you'll get a nice straight line. Okay, now you take this top one off. Go grab a knife so we can carefully cut the tape back. Okay, you want to be a little careful with this because you don't want to cut through the paint. So you just want to barely cut through the tape. And what I do is I kind of just lay my razor blade kind of flat. Okay, beautiful. Now we can tape off our holes and then put a piece of paper over the front and we are ready for the green. We have to tack cloth it off again and then we can put the green on. I'm going to make sure I put a nice big piece of tape around this. Push it down really good so that no overspray gets past it. Now this under here is going to be a little bit more challenging because it's got a gap. Now there is a sticker that goes on this face right here, so if I get a little bit of overspray on there, I'm not worried about it. It's just the edges I don't want to get overspray on. And I think what I'm going to do is, better be safe than sorry, I'll just throw some tape along the edge and then cover it with paper, because then it won't be as big a deal. That'll help seal that. Now I'm going to go grab a piece of paper, get it sealed up, and then we are going to get the green on this. You also want to make sure you tape along the bottom, because if you don't, this blows out. Once again, you have another entry point for overspray. And then once everything is taped, you got to run your hand around everything really, really well. Make sure everything is stuck. Push down some good firm pressure. And when we go to paint the green, want to try not to run the green on this angle. Kind of spray it this way. You're building less on this surface if you're spraying away from the edge versus into the edge. Plus, spraying into the edge could cause the tape to want to lift a little bit easier. Now, once again, you gotta be really careful with your razor blade. You don't want to push too hard. Because if you cut through that tape, you could possibly get overspray through the cut line. So if you do cut through the tape, you want to make sure you put tape over top of it. Okay, we are taped off. So now we can go mix up some of the green, and then we'll tack cloth off the cabinet and get the next coat on, or get the green on. Now this green is a 2-to-1 mix, not a 4-to-1. So it's 2 parts paint, 1 part reducer. You can add a hardener if you want, but I'm not going to put a hardener because I'm putting a clear coat over it anyways. But some of these cheaper paints are only a 2-to-1 versus a 4-to-1. Keep my white still. Just keep it over here in case I happen to need it. So since we're going 2-to-1, we'll go to 2-to-1 on the gun, or on the thing here. Now, as long as you don't use hardener, whatever paint you don't use, you can pour it back into your container. If you put hardener in it, you have to throw it away. The cheaper paints use less reducer because they seem to be thinner to begin with. Now we also have to tape our tack cloth off the other hanging parts, the plastic pieces, and that part that the globe sits on, because now it's been sitting a while, there's probably some dust on it. Got to make sure we wipe it all down real good. Oops. This green looks like it's pretty darn close to the original color. Every once in a while, the edge of this cup will fold down. You got to be careful when you put the lid on. If that edge folds down and you don't pay attention and you flip it over, it's going to pour out on the ground everywhere. So, all right, I'm going to get my gun, get it ready, go out there. We're going to tack it off and get the first coat of green on. No idea how well this green's going to cover. It might cover real quickly. It might cover slowly. Okay, as I suspected, it covered really good because it's going over gray sealer epoxy primer. Let's say you're painting like a dark blue color. If you put it over black epoxy primer or a sealer, it's going to cover quicker than it will over a gray. So if you keep those things in mind, you can make your life a lot easier and you can save yourself a bunch of money on materials. Let's say you're just doing an overall paint job and you're trying to do a cheaper one and you're painting it powder blue and you have some powder blue, lighter shade or something left over. You could hit the car with that on the first coat and then go over it with the right color, and that'll just save you a bunch of product material, and it also gives you a way to get rid of some old material as well. So you can keep that in mind too. I still got a little bit of paint in the gun. I have enough to definitely hit the plastics in that top ring part, and then I'll probably have to mix up more so we can put another coat on the cabinet. Looks like it's only going to take 2 coats, and then I'll probably just do one light mist over the whole cabinet on the 3rd coat just to make sure I got everything. Now when I go to clear this, I'm going to clear this a little bit different than normal. I have those recessed corners. They're 45s inset. I'm going to probably hit all 4 edges with the clear first. All 4 corners on all the way around the cabinet, and then come back and clear the cabinet like I normally would. By doing that, whatever clear lands on that clear already in the corner should melt together. I'm going to use a slow hardener, and it's only, I think it's only about 70 degrees. I'm not running the heat right now. It's about 77 degrees in the spray booth right now, so it's perfect. Slow hardener. It should work out good to keep those corners wet looking. And if you notice on the front, I kind of sprayed as much as I could away from the tape. And when I was spraying, I only gave it like 3/4 trigger. I did not fully open the gun and blow a ton of paint out. So I went about 3/4 of the way. Another thing too is, if you notice, I don't have a lot of overspray. I'm only spraying at 30 PSI right now. I'm shooting it at the pressure that the gun manufacturer recommends. If I blow it at 50 PSI, I'm wasting a ton of paint in the air on the floor and through the filter. And it's really not going to do me any good. It's just, there's no point in high pressure spraying. If you know what you're doing and you just follow all the directions, there's no reason to do it. So we are literally only a minute or 2 away from another coat. It's setting up really quickly. So I'm gonna give it a minute. We'll go out there, we're gonna hit those parts. I'll pause, I'll mix up some more green, and then we'll hit the cabinet. Okay, so now we just wait again until I can touch that paint to where I can tack cloth it off. Once I can tack cloth it off, we can untape it after we tack cloth it and put a couple coats of clear, probably 3 coats of clear. I'm not going to put reducer in the first coat of clear, but I'll probably put a little reducer in the second and third coat. So I'll be back shortly. Okay, let's get everything tack clothed off and untape the front. Barely any overspray of green on this rag at all. Now, if you notice, I did that third dry coat while the second coat was still a little wet, and what that does is it embeds into the wet coat. Now let's go ahead and pull this paper off and see what it looks like. Green overspray on the back of the tape, but it's not on the paint. Some more right there. See, if we didn't cover that, those little speckles would be all over the white on the front. I'm not going to tack cloth off the front. I'm just going to leave it alone. It should be just fine. So now we're going to mix up some clear. Let's put a couple coats of clear on this. And that'll be the end of this video. And then tomorrow, I want to put this thing together. I don't think it'll take too long to put together. But I think it's looking real good. The clear I'm using is a 4-to-1 mix. 4 parts clear, 1 part hardener. And then, like I said, first coat, no reducer. Second coat, I'm going to put 10% in. This is the clear I'm using, the Wanda 8100 2K clear. It's an overall clear. It's not a spot clear, it's for overall paint jobs. And this one's not open. Once I get that back next bay done, I have more fireproof cabinets. I'm going to put all this clear and stuff in. I know I haven't opened one of these. Just don't remember which one I opened. Here it is. Okay. So we're going to go to the 4-to-1. Darn it. All right, I'm gonna get this stirred up in the gun and we are gonna go get the first coat put on. Okay, let's walk around it, show it to you so far. Pretty smooth, a little bit of dryness right here. See a little bit of dryness in the clear? Don't get worried about that. Second coat's gonna take care of it. I might not need to do a third coat on these. The more I'm thinking about it, I'm not wet sanding and buffing it. So I don't think I'm gonna need a third coat, but let it be a little dry in the first coat, okay? Because what we're doing right now is just putting a glue on the surface. Just consider this as a big thing of glue you just sprayed all over this thing. And once it sets for about 15 minutes, we're gonna put another coat on a little bit slower, a little bit heavier. Not a ton, but enough that we're gonna smooth this out more. And like I said, we're gonna put a tiny bit of reducer in it just to make it flow a hair more. Plus I'm using a slow hardener, and it is currently 80 degrees in here. That's what it is outside. It's 80 degrees outside right now. That's what I'm bringing into the building is 80-degree weather. You know, obviously when it starts getting to be 100 degrees outside, I'm bringing in 100-degree air. And at that point, it seems to, a lot of times when it gets real hot like that around here, we get a lot of humidity. And when that's the case, as dumb as it may sound, I run the heater. What the heater does is kills the humidity. It takes the moisture out of the air. But you'll be spraying in 100-degree weather, so you got to use the slow hardener. This is the slowest hardener they make for this clear. Some clear companies offer an extra slow hardener. I know, like, you know, in Florida and stuff like that, when it's 110, 120 degrees, I know those guys will wait until the evenings to paint stuff because it's just too hot. And when it gets real hot like that, it just dries too fast. So today, being at 80 degrees, this is like the perfect hardener for that temperature. Between 80 and 90, this slow, in my opinion, is perfect. If I were using a medium today, there would be a lot more dryness in that than what there is right now, because it would be drying a lot quicker when it hits the panel than it would, you know, if it were cooler out. So you got to keep in mind of all your hardeners, your temperatures outside and all that. Because I'm using a spray booth, because I run heat, I always go with slow, because I can pretty much always spray at the same temperature. Usually I always spray at about 80 to 85 degrees. So I'm real comfortable with those temperatures. You know, even the dead of winter when it's 0, 20 below 0, it'll be about 75 in the spray booth. So I'm pushing it a little bit with the slow, but that's fine. You just gotta wait a little longer. Instead of waiting 10 minutes, wait 15, 20 minutes before you put your next coat on. So I think I'm only gonna need one more coat. I think it's gonna lay out just fine with 2 coats. So I'm gonna give it another 10 minutes, get another batch mixed up and put a little reducer in it, and I'll be back. Let's go check it. It's only been about 5 minutes, I'm just curious. So basically I'm gonna take my finger in an area that's gonna get covered up anyways. It's just a little sticky, but it's not stringy. So we're pretty much ready to go. So I'm gonna give it another 2 minutes or so and we will put the next coat on. Okay, it's been actually about 5 minutes. I'm just giving it enough time. I'm gonna do the same thing again with those edges, hit those edges first, and then hit all the flat surfaces. So I'm gonna hit the globe parts and then work my way. And if you notice, I'm always working my way from the front of the booth towards the back. You always wanna work your way towards the exhaust fan, not from the exhaust fan this way. If I were to work on painting the gas pump first and then I went and did the globe parts, all that overspray is gonna land on the gas pump, which is already drying because it was sprayed first, and it's gonna leave dull spots and dryness on the gas pump, whatever you wanna call it. be a little bit more clear. Okay, it's done. As you can see, I had run out of clear on half of the front, but I was able to go back over the whole front and not ruin the sides by getting overspray onto it, because I used a slow hardener with a medium reducer. And oh no, it's a slow reducer too. So I used both slow products, so it was still open on the sides. It wasn't set up yet, so it worked out well. So let's take a look at it here. It's been about 10 minutes, but it dried really, really well. Very, very minimal dirt. Few tiny little spots, nothing I'm going to worry about. Little bit of orange peel, not bad. I'm not wet sanding and buffing it. We're not painting a car here. But all in all, I think it looks really good. And keep in mind, look at how clean this is, and look at how dirty the booth is. I didn't even clean the booth. Look at this. That's all dust and dirt on the floor. What it is it's all in how well you prep your parts. The better you prep your stuff, the better it's going to look. So you got to keep that in mind. All right, so I'm going to go ahead and let this dry, end this video, get it uploaded so you guys can watch it, and hopefully you guys come back for tomorrow. I'll have a video on putting it together. The rest of today, I am going to be working on the 59 Impala. I am going to bake this clear after about 20 minutes. This is recommended up to 130 or 140 degrees. I forget what it said. 140 degrees. 30 minutes at 140. So, all right, guys, I really appreciate you watching. Hopefully more people will watch, and you guys will like, subscribe, share, hit the thumbs up. I'd really appreciate it, and I will see you guys later. Thanks.